could take that Alistar for Ignar. That is a champion that he has been very successful on. But the Victor available, probably going to be grabbed by Jin very early in this draft without the TF for the pick. And the Kog'Maw. Oh, God.
Kog'Maw Maokai is a fearsome red side first set of picks, but by itself, opening up, say, Maokai in Italy for the excellent gank top, excellent synergy between those two champions. Look, Jin can't run quite the same comp, but they could put together a decent impersonation of it.
Yeah, and Alistar Maokai, another possible combination. Alistar Victor. I mean, there are just so many tools you have right now if you're Jin, and many of these picks are hard engage picks to help you deal with the Kog'Maw. Runeglaive Ezreal still certainly on the board here, and they could take away the Gnar. That is a champion we've seen banned against Expression, actually.
So Expression had played 6 unique champions, now finally played the Gnar for the second time. After the first performance, 3-1 and 10, he was at a 13 KDA. Obviously chopped down a bit in the previous series. Very weird to not see Maokai taken when it's available, given that Trace, despite the team's mixed fortunes, is 7-1 on that champion after last game.
So, prioritizing that Gnar. I don't know if you do that in this particular situation. They're also going to take the Gragas, which has slipped through the draft. So Chaser mixing up his jungler with something that's a little bit more reliable, I would say, even if it does have less carry potential for him.
I mean, why take the risk? You see a Kog'Maw. We've seen Kog'Maw win a lot, I believe about 72% win rate overall after the loss in the last game, because there's so little backline pressure. Cinderhawk top laners are gone. Only the likes of Maokai give you the targeted backline from the top lane that's really in the meta. And now you take Gnar Gragas, which can have as much teamfight synergy as teamfight anti-synergy when we're talking about the big repositioning ultimates, the Gnar and the explosive cast.
That's right. So probably going to be a Rek'Sai here. Why wouldn't you take the Alistar? Alistar actually falling very far down the draft because there were a lot of pocket bans in this draft. The Azir, the Evelynn, the Twisted Fate. So trying to target out some of these players.
Lister's still a permaban despite quite a heavy set of changes sent her way. We talked a bit about the potential for the Runeglaive Ezreal, so Pilot also, it's caster AD carry, but of course you never really want to opt straight into the AD carry as we kind of default to it, and with last pick, that certainly looms as an option for this Jin lineup. Just waiting to see where they want to go with their comp, because with the Gragas Gnar duo, they have a lot of options.
Right, and here's the thing, if they do pick the option of having the Ezreal here, it may prompt IM to take the Maokai, in which case you have that preferable lane matchup.
Okay.
And I think maybe they will grab the Braum here.
I think the correct play is not to lock in your mid laner. Even though Victor looms as a really top meta pick, I think you just shroud it all in secrecy.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you've got the ranged auto attackers, the likes of Gnar and Ezreal, to proc that Braum passive, even if it is the mid lane or the bot lane Ezreal, I think we're in good stead so far with this Jin draft.
Yes. Yes, I think we are. Lots of disengage, a lot of disruption and kite ability for Jin. IM has to pick some more hard engage right now. They probably need to pick the Maokai, but that's going to put them in a situation where you actually have a losing top lane matchup against that Gnar. So Jin forcing some tough decisions from Incredible Miracle.
It is a top lane matchup that you can navigate around. We saw just the last game, of course, being navigated around. And then, of course, back on Saturday, we saw a solo kill from Maokai against Gnar.
Okay, those are outliers. Remember the camp last game? It takes a lot.
The recency effect is in full display. I've seen 2 games. Maokai's won them both. Maokai's a Gnar counter. Don't you know, Monte Cristo?
Juggermaw may be coming through.
No engage, so why not?
Yeah. They can at least match poke for poke here. Oh. Cassiopeia instead switched up at the last second. So apparently Frozen very comfortable with blind picking that champion.
And Cassiopeia doesn't necessarily mean this is not a Juggermaw comp. Okay, maybe it's not a true Juggermaw comp, but it's still, Cassiopeia does provide great peel with the Petrifying Gaze for a Kog'Maw. So Kog'Maw is relatively free in the backline. Okay, Gnar and Gragas have potential, but it's not reliable engage onto this Kog'Maw.
No, certainly is not. They basically have to hope for some very good Gragas casks, and they're going to have an AD carry with probably a tier early on for Pilot, so may have some trouble up against Kog'Maw should they get those standard lanes. GBM, a lot of burden on him. Now, we've seen GBM step up and make flank plays on Victor to engage when Jin Air has had low amounts of primary engage in the past. He can be tricky on that champion. He's found ways into the back line, but is that reliable? Gotta say probably not, especially with the tremor sense on the other team.
I liked how you talked about the tier, Ezreal. I feel like really delayed Bang and SKT's ability to really pressure anything against KT game 1 yesterday. I think you go the Kid school of thought. Just rush that Trinity Force outright, or maybe even just go for Blade the Ruin King. Get instant power of some description, because if you opt into tier, the downside for your team, if anything goes wrong in the early game, is severe.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that point. You just can't fight well enough in the laning phase to make it worth losing some turrets and having that big power trough where you can't fight around the dragon. Well, we'll see what Pilot builds. Game 2, Jin Air Green Wings versus Longzhu IM right now. So, match point for Jin Air. Spooky starts his career by forgetting his trinket and items.
Crowd rubs it in as well. Even loses the speed boost, of course, leaving the base. Doesn't refresh, so it's going to be much later. And now, because Jin Air's on a 4-man, now 5-man invade mission, that was a really decisive flash from Expression.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was necessary, but he did want to stay out of range of the Winter's Bite. Could have locked him down. He didn't have any help on that top side. Certainly having the tremor sense would have been probably pretty useful right there. So deep wards going in. And no trinket or items for Chaser either.
Wow.
What is going on?
Something weird's going on in the jungle, Monte Cristo. I'm not even talking about the map movements.
Chaser still asleep. Wow, it was hilarious because he went down to put his ward. He's like, oh.
Smart cast bug?
Crap.
No smart cast bug, Chaser. You're just silly. Hard to say. Wow. Hard to say whether he's had to itemize, had to skill body slam for the CC effect or just to get to the jungle faster.
Well, this is awkward. I feel that after last game, it's just only appropriate that this game would start that way. Well, they could have put down some early pressure right there. They could have started by trying to take away the buffs in the jungle like we've seen. That's typically the warding pattern that you go when you're going to be doing that first buff invade, especially when you have the lane swap. And instead, we are going to see no pressure onto Spooky. But I think that invading early on, making Spooky make some tough pro-game only decisions would have been a great way to start, but that is not what Jin Air is going to get, and probably going to be tier in this lane swap, considering Pilot will have a bit more time to farm up all by his lonesome.
We can only speculate that Chaser would be taking a page out of the likes of Score's playbook. Remember when he was against Catch earlier against Spenu, really getting in his face and just trying to hold down a jungler that honestly he probably thought was inferior to him, and most junglers are inferior to Chaser, certainly on the big stage for the first time. This is the time when you try and boss around, but both junglers caught with their pants down at level 1.
I love how at least Spooky realized it immediately, but Chaser actually went to ward before he figured out what the hell was going on.
To his credit, at least he was there proactively. They blew a flash because of his presence, and also it's not like the machete provides any combat stats at level 1, but yes, when it came to the warding, very awkward.
Okay, so we have a heavy stack up here. We don't normally see 3-minute ganks or this kind of lane swapping in Korea. Ignar is going to be there in the nick of time, and there's going to be a flash commitment. There's the Winter's Bite. They're going to try and get the stun, and there's the stack. Can they get the last auto? They do. Expression low. Expression no flash, remember. There's the commitment. E forward. Pilot gets the kill. Arcane shift, and the last auto attack. Expression. I feel so bad for this guy tonight. He is just getting the tar beaten out. He's just getting camped, though. It's not like he's necessarily playing poorly. He's been dove multiple times.
I mean, in this particular situation, no flash, 100% information to Jin Air. It was a very smart map rotation from Jin Air movement around the map, but I agree. He's been so well held down. And remember, Jin Air initiated a lane swap despite having the Na versus Maokai mismatch, because you just have to navigate Ezreal away from 2v2s early. He doesn't have the laning power in the AD carry role to hang with close to anyone. Maybe just Twitch, for example.
Yeah, especially with this itemization, but that will be an early tier for Pilot, and it looks like with that tier, they're moving into the 2v2. I don't know about this either. Certainly, Trace is going to have an advantage. He does have a level edge right now.
Item advantage also. He's got the longsword. So it was there's big struggle for Trace in this when he was opting into the Na vs Maokai matchup last time out, when he got solo killed by the Maokai. So a bit of war story, a bit of PTSD perhaps for the Na, is that his first item buy after being held down was a non-magic mantle. At least this time, potions and the longsword means that he can just go harass happy against the Maokai.
Yeah, he can. Also, that early back from Pilot means that he's actually going to have a tier to just the Doran's Blade, so he will actually be doing okay in this lane. So maybe bought himself a little bit of time. We'll see what Sonstar manages to get on his first recall. He won't have that first blood gold like Pilot does.
Sometimes almost without fail, we see two starting lines. Oh my goodness, Chaser's caught Spooky. That's 2v2 action in the jungle.
That's right, and here comes Frozen. Ignar here, he's going to headbutt Chaser out. Chaser will go down. Was a 3v2, and GBM just not responding to the mid lane. Where's the gravity field? It will fall. Spooky gets stunned. Not enough follow-up damage, though, as Chaser gets caught out in that mid lane. You have to be careful walking into that river. Frozen did have the priority. GBM could not get over there faster than this Cassiopeia.
It was a really nice collapse by Ignar, but because he failed his headbutt pulverize and actually headbutted him out of vision, they lost damage. They had to overextend a bit more to get the kill onto Chaser. Maybe it would have been 2 clean kills, but the end result is still positive for IM as they have a lot of control around the bottom lane. Okay, Pilot has the mana regen and mana sustain, and he's building up towards an earlier timer for the Muramana, but the tier doesn't give him any combat stats, and this is already a losing matchup for Ezreal.
It's going to be quite tough to deal with this situation now. He's starting to fall pretty heavily behind in terms of CS. He'll catch up, of course, with this massive minion wave that's been building. Trace, on the other hand, starting to really take it to Expression. He is 2 levels up on the Maokai right now. That is pretty intense. Expression just can't even get anywhere close to the minion wave.
And because it's already a naturally losing lane matchup, I think honestly it's probably Spooky's best idea to stay away and just say Expression, do the best that you can. As his teleport up again soon, so maybe we'll finally be able to make a decisive item purchase, but this is how this lane matchup should go. This should be Na just having his way with Expression, and the reason why this matchup doesn't get a lot better is that Expression there's not really a lot of good itemization against the Na, because you might think, okay, pick up the armor to lessen the Q and auto attack harass. A lot of the trade damage, when we're talking about levels 10 and 12, is going to be the W coming through from Na that does that magic damage, and you're going to always eat free auto attacks in a range versus melee matchup.
Yeah, there's really no avoiding that. And so, a little bit of a tough time here for Expression. And actually, Pilot catching right back up in terms of creep score. Managing to use that early back that he had to stay in lane, considering he was already starting to stack his tier. He also got a very early tier this game because of the first blood gold.
Yeah, it might be as early as maybe the pre-nerf tier days when we were talking about, what, 13 to 15 minute Muramana. It's maybe not quite that early.
No. It
Still going to be pushing it, though, pre-20 minutes.
Yeah, 18 would be my estimate. We will see what happens with that item here. And
good old Jace being super powered with
those were the days.
Yeah. Jace still back, but even Coco couldn't really make it work. Okay, it was with the sub-Goon crew, but one Jace game, no victories so far in Champions.
No, I think we'll see maybe some more Jace at some point, but a lot of the Varus and Jace play just hasn't really been popular in Korea recently.
Operation Smash in the face at the top side of the jungle when you have Maokai so far down into a rookie jungle is enacted by Chaser and the duo that's running through the jungle. Spooky's reacting as well. Does have the Raptor Sense buffs, so able to clear. This is not a 3v3 that LCIM wants to opt into.
No, it is not. Now they're going to start threatening. There's the True Shot Barrage, and that means GBM gets the blue buff and the kill onto Spooky. Trace manages to make his way into that topside jungle, and was risky. They didn't know exactly what was going on there because Chaser and GBM were staying quite still in the fog of war.
It was risky to a fault. Chaser and Sweet had already had time, so Chaser and the duo had already had time to prop up wards, get the extra vision at exact time, as they of course had the vision both on the brush right behind the mid lane tower and also around the blue buff. So they used that to their advantage, even had time for Pilot to prep the True Shot Barrage. So
that was actually very nicely done, the True Shot Barrage.
That was good Jin Air communication. That's what we were looking for maybe last game and saw in fleets and spurts.
Yeah, you don't expect that if you're Spooky to come in and try and take that objective. And it got actually the blue buff down within death ray range for GBM, so the timing really couldn't have been better.
GBM Frozen, we're waiting to see the itemization. Spooky comes on Jimmy. He does use the Chilling Smite, does force the flash. It's still a successful gank, despite not having a flash to expend for the flash unburrow. Remember on this patch, slightly smaller width for the unburrow from 200 to 160. But in terms of visual representation, just need to be that much more on form with the flash.
Yeah, I don't know about that change onto Rek'Sai either, because I think you need to change your auto attack range at that point too, because now you're getting into some weird situations where she'll be in auto attack range and she'll pop up, but she won't actually get the knock up down.
From what I was reading, her auto attack range is actually increased in that particular interaction, so I don't think it actually changes it too much. It's not that really weird interaction with how this goes, but it's something they've definitely been considering.
Yeah. Well, Trace back to the top side has that completed Hex Drinker right now.
Frozen has an needlessly large rod, but we're on 5.13, so it could still be rivalized, which now builds out of the needlessly large rod.
Yeah. I assume we're going to be seeing something like that. Sweet ults in the bottom side.
No, it didn't seem that good. It was an average ult to me.
And not even that good. Not even average, really.
Mediocre ult by Sweet.
We don't pick it up. Frozen with a flash, petrifying gaze. There's a knockup coming in from Spooky, and the disengage from Chaser gets the explosive cast down. There is a teleport coming in. They're still chasing onto Chaser. Trace is here. He's in Meganar form. Can he get the ult? He does. Three-man ultimate. Huge ult from Trace. GBM on the outside. His exhaust is worn up. Sonstar is dead, dead, dead. And Trace will get the kill onto Ignar. Double kill from Pilot. 4 for 0. Oh boy,
and
man.
You are so frustrated if you're Frozen because the CC layering at the start was good, but Ignar never got into headbutt pole range. Just awkwardly walked slowly as the cow could not impact that fight. If there was triple wombo of CC, there would have been kills for IM.
Well, Spooky here. He wants to smite it. Not going to get the steal. But wow, I mean, just the play there from Jin Air to set that fight up. But look how much was burned just onto Chaser.
If the headbutt pole comes in, Monte Cristo, I think they take down at least one of the members, minimum Chaser. But now they started chasing, and unfortunately the collapse was there. No teleport away from the Maokai. Lovely Gnar ultimate into the wall. And the cleanup crew was true.
Yeah, it was. Trace going to get the kill on Ignar at the end too. Frozen, but that's a risk. You use your flash and your ultimate like that onto just a single target with the enemy TP is available, and you can get into a really sticky situation.
Ignar used his flash, didn't get into headbutt pole range, didn't even have the ultimate to walk around and feel a bit sheepish in this particular situation because it wouldn't have made a big impact, but I am so close, but so far.
Yeah, well, that's going to dig them into a rather significant hole, give up the first dragon, give up 4 kills, and that powered up pretty much every lane, and now this blue build Ezreal, he's not going to have really a big problem.
No, now you can't force him out. Has such a high flat mana pool that even if you send multiple members, will just trim the wave with the ultimate and the Mystic Shot. Keep powering up that Mirror Mana transformation as early as possible. Now the Bilge Water for the sustain as well. So itemization, happy times for Pilot on one of these caster AD carries and making it work.
Well, it's that mid lane tower really getting heavily chipped too. Frozen having trouble matching the wave clear, the instantaneous wave clear of Victor. So GBM has a very healthy advantage in that mid lane. Frozen still trying to stack that tier himself.
Super interested to see where he goes with the build, with the new flexibility. Now you have that much earlier back timing. Picking up 1250 gold feels so good. Picking up the nearest large rod. And just having so many flexible options, both damage and utility. And for a champion like Cassiopeia, I really do love the Rylai's Leandris, at least in theory. I've played around with it a little bit in solo queue, but whether the pros actually look to adopt it. In this matchup, when you're going to have high health members from the top lane and the jungle, I think it's worth a consideration.
It is, but the problem with Cassiopeia is not that she's not good with the new itemization, because she is one of the stronger champions with it. It's that when we see Cassiopeia played, frequently this is what happens. Trace in the enemy jungle right now. He's at the blue buff. He's doing a 1v2 duel. Spooky gonna follow up. Red buff burning onto Trace right now.
It's tanky. We're waiting for members from Jin Air to come and help, but at this present point, they're too far away. In Mininar, those resists are gone. That health is gone, and so is Trace.
But the blue buff might also be gone as Jin Air takes it away, gives it to GBM, so draws them out, so they at least get something in return for that kill. But Trace playing it a bit fast and loose right there. He only has a Hex Drinker and a Cowl. He's not in a great position in terms of his tankiness yet to really be dealing with some of these invades. But as I was saying with Cassiopeia, the problem is that we frequently see her just getting bullied out by these wave clear mid laners, and once that mid turret goes down, it becomes extremely difficult to keep control over your jungle with this champion.
Laning phase was actually one of the strengths of Cassiopeia maybe 3-4 months ago, but with the introduction of so many popular meta champions that have basically instant line wave clear, I'm thinking Twisted Fate and Victor squarely, or just wave clear that outclasses Cassiopeia, needs to prune down those minion waves, then of course gets the nice mana sustain from the E. And of course that mana sustain was even target nerfed, so just the laning phase so much more difficult. And as you mentioned, the downside is, if you rotate around it, if you take down her outer turret, you can just freely outpush her if you're Victor and do your best Faker impression and walk all over the map.
Yeah, just that game that we saw Faker play against the Ku Tigers when he had the Victor matchup into the Cassiopeia. Of course, there was pre-item changes. Sure. It's on 5.12. But even so, there are now deep wards on both sides of IM's jungle, and they're going to continue to get those deep wards in. And that means that GBM can wander wherever he pleases.
I guess my excitement, though, is, Monte Cristo, that you always have to think about the risk-reward. Now, if you're a bit smarter about rotating around your Cassiopeia, does the new itemization justify the upside of the Rylai's and Leandries leading to perma-slow potential to really chip down? The poke damage of the Q is now suddenly something that has to be respected just because of the higher ability power and the natural burn from the Leandries. Risk-reward is always something that's changed by patch notes. So we're getting more information here. It's still going to be the Archangel's Rush, and again, just talking about the different itemization choices. Neither side's Rod, happy to build into the Archangel.
Goes into everything.
Everything, absolutely. I mean, Amtone literally builds into everything.
It's true.
Aggression. Look, well held the whole game. 50 CS disadvantage. That's definitely on the higher side of what we expect out of a matchup that's not the best from Maokai.
And here comes the Roams with the Victor. How safe is IM?
Have a turret to go back to.
They do. No dive. Frozen making his way over there would make a turret dive particularly dangerous. 30 seconds now until the second dragon of the game will be available for the take. Spooky going to make a play. There's a chilling smite down to Pilot. There's the knockup coming out of the Unfurl. Pilot starting to kite. Does have to use his Summoner's Field. Oh, Spooky has overextended, and now there's a TP coming in from both teams' top laners. GBM the first to respond. He is going to have the angle right here. There's the Death Ray. He gets caught up by Expression. Cleanse used. Now we see the zoning from the Gravity Field. Sodstar still at risk. Does get stunned. Does get popped by the Chaos Storm. And now Ignar the target. He's going to fall to a stun too. Trace still there. Trace about to hit that Meganar. Will they dive? No. Petrifying Gaze hits 3. GBM gets targeted down with the Twin Fangs. And that's going to be the conclusion of that fight. 2 for 2 when the dust settles.
And you can just see the difference in experience between a player like Frozen and a player like Spooky. Spooky got far too trigger happy, got in there, was just being kited back by Pilot. Of course, it's Ezreal has the most ability to open space of any AD carry next to Corki, and just had the item times to both sustain and put out damage. We'll watch this. Just Spooky, remember, Alice is not in position for this gank, not impacting it whatsoever with his suite of CC. Spooky's getting kited backwards, bilge water, then just into this burst damage goes down. We see the teleports come through. You can see from the mini-map that Victor and Gryze can just make the more aggressive rotation down to bottom lane. So as this fight goes on, remember, Frozen doesn't get trigger happy himself and use the ultimates. That's the reason why towards the end we'll see the answering kill from a smart Haunting Guns.
Yeah, too true. And it was actually a preferable fight for Jin Air because they did get the initial kill onto Spooky.
3-man. Cassiopeia hero.
You know, at this level of play, we expect players to turn their back on that. We've seen CJ, for example, which are a better fighting team than Jin Air, completely nullify Cassiopeia ults by all 4 of them turning their backs. You have to be ready for that. You need to know as a team if that ultimate is still up. And what an obvious place to use that ult, too, if you are frozen just to get out. So pretty sloppy there, actually, from Jin Air. At least 2 of those people should not have been hit by that.
Unfortunately, sloppy teamfight play has been the case today. That's not been the strength of this Jin Air team. It's all been about rotations. IM have started this dragon. This will be their first dragon. Gnar is not in position to contest.
But here's the collapse afterward. Jin Air still looking for that fight. Glacial Fissure will catch Ignar, forces that Unbreakable Will out. GBM here, and Ignar is going to die eventually, but he does actually zone off the rest of the team. However, Jin Air now has an angle into this mid lane.
Trace didn't have Mega Knight, couldn't cultivate it. It's now actually building up Rage onto Expression.
Oh, do they want to go for this? No, but they do get the flash.
Trace didn't have flash himself. Don't think he actually had the ability to push Expression back into the team. With this position on mid, Spooky in particular caught out of position. A lot of damage so far.
Just going huge Death Ray actually. Pops the Chaos Storm. Doesn't really hit anybody, but it is threatening enough that Jin Air will get the tower.
I am just interested in keeping this turret up, whether that was communication or just decision-making. Spooky was out of position. Cogmore stayed in the bottom lane to maybe get some sort of turret trade, but with Pilot there, can't even do that. And another objective and more gold goes over to Jin Air. 7,500, close to 8,000 is the gold lead for Jin Air.
It is. So, Jin Air once again jumping out to a massive gold advantage in the early game. Last game, they sort of ran out of steam at this point and couldn't figure out a proper way to close.
Frozen is going for the Rylai's. The Leandra is not guaranteed, but it's looking like at least the potential Rylai's Leandras that I've kind of heavily speculated about so far this series. Sonstar's doing a good job pushing solo, but I believe Rek'Sai has been caught out by Vision, so maybe they'll be able to chip down this turret, maybe not.
Yeah, Sonstar really doing some work here with that red buff, harassing Pilot's Ezreal. There's not a lot of response to that Bio-Arcane Barrage poke that's coming in.
Ezreal just doesn't have trading responses, you know, barring the especially non-AP Ezreal cooldown on the True Shot Barrage is respectable, so they will eventually get this turret, but they've invested 3 members in it so far, and Gragas is on the chase.
And here we go, Chaser on his way in right now. Sonstar on the run, he's very low when it comes to HP. Explosive Casting is going to catch out Ignar, but that Alistar ult will save him for the moment. Frozen is here, they have to be careful. So, looks like Jin Air not going to commit to this, wise, but they save their turret. And Sonstar barely gets out. Did have that summoner heal should he be under more threat, but GBM going to take this time. Again, clear out those mid lane waves, make a play onto the top side right now. Jin Air with more and more turret. Oh, Ignar. Flashbolt misses, and that's a dead Alistar. Spooky going to come in. Sonstar still low. Sonstar has no mana. Pilot is caught out under the turret. There's a Petrifying Gaze. Shut down onto Pilot's Ezreal, but they cannot defend their tier 2 right now. GBM and Trace, free tower in the top side.
A really nice animation canceling by Frozen to get the kill, but remember, visited bottom, then left, and was coming back to be involved in that fight. That was 4 members being used in bottom, and GBM could just go help Trace as they push down the outer turret and top and get chip damage onto the inhibitor turret. Just using more resources for an even kill trade is a big problem for IM.
Yeah, it is. An even turret trade too, but that tier 2 in response to a tier 1. They also lost some golden experience off of these minion waves. Nobody picking them up in mid and top, so.
Pilot's so much stronger than an AD carry Ezreal should be at this stage in the game. Now has the Blade of the Ruin King's not even going for Trinity Force.
No Muramana yet, by the way.
That's crazy to me that he doesn't have
23 minutes.
Maybe just rotational play. I guess I haven't really kept close tabs, but I expected a 20-minute Muramana.
Yeah.
When we're talking about, what, a 4-minute tier? 3.5 minute tier?
3.5 minute, yeah. Taking a look at that difference in gold right now. Trace, for once, actually fed.
And just now, so 23 minutes was the eventual transform. Probably about 2.5, 3 minutes later than I expected.
Well, that's a very large lead for Trace. He's uncomfortable with the situation, obviously. He doesn't know what to do when he's gotten so much gold in a game already.
I mean, just has to think back to what sort of a man he was 2 years ago and do his best impression. Because remember, he's not used that for selfish stats. It's not the Black Cleaver Gnar that, of course, Marin was incessantly putting out yesterday, whether he was on the advantage or not. This is by far the more defensive. It's a team fighting build, so despite having that selfish advantage, it's not like he's that much better at punishing Expression in a 1v1.
Fair enough.
Expression hasn't been able to build magic resist. It's something that's just deceptive, but when you max out that hyper, it's a lot of magic damage when we're talking about the ramping auto attack.
And also, just look at Victor right now. If you get in range of that Abyssal, he can just melt the front line because GBM has quite a few items already. Victor burst damage will do work even though Expression has that damage reduction percentage, by percentage ultimate.
Frozen might be forced into the Abyssal even if Leandre's might be the higher damage choice just because no null magic mana doesn't really matter if you have a high health total. You're going to be chunked out to below a third instantly.
And you have to say, too, it's very important that IM get an Aegis here, and they're not even close to that.
I mean,
at the
cloth
moment.
armor is the only real luxury purchase that Spooky's been able to pick up, and it's... Look, maybe that's just from how much free damage he took from Pilot, but you're right. An Aegis is not a luxury. An Aegis is an absolute essential. On the food pyramid, it's right there. It's an essential.
So it's at the base of the LOL pyramid.
That's
Aegis
right.
of the Legion. Everybody buy it right now.
I mean, like, how would you feel about an extra 100 magic resist for your team? Feels pretty good.
I like that, especially against a Victor. Seems pretty nice. Okay, well, another setup for the Dragon right now. I am not really in position to go ahead and take this one. Void Rush will come through from the Spooky.
Expression has the Home Guard teleports, so they can look for a place. The Slippy Slide is enacted by Spooky.
They have the pink ward there. So, let's see.
Where's the flank wall? There's one towards the bottom end of the pit. That's actually a pretty good advanced one that hasn't been spotted out by a pink, so Expression has options. But they need to start making a move, and making it soon.
And here comes that move. GBM is going to have to kite back very quickly. TP not going to find a target, but they do have Trace Isolate on the side. Spooky goes in. There's the ult from Ignar too, but there's a True Shot Rush. Nearly takes out Spooky. Trace and Expression duking it out on the side, but Ignar is just left. IM split up, and there is Frozen just annihilated by an R ultimate. Double kill for GBM, and Expression bites the dust for a triple, and that will be a Baron for the Jin Air Green Wings. If you are IM right there, you have to commit to one side or another. You can't play around with this Gnar with your frontliner Maokai.
But there's bigger problems that Monte Cristo. And unfortunately, it's the reality of playing your first game on the big stage. We saw the overchase by Spooky onto Ezreal earlier. This time, he was just so far away from his team. He was literally on 100 health before anyone else had impacted the team fight. And so Ignar died for free in the front line with the ult up. Gnar eventually got into the back line. The synergy and the calls between... You see Sunstar trying to solo this Dragon now, but GBM's thinking about killing Sunstar.
There's the Chaos Storm. Heal has to be used, and the Flash. So GBM will walk away with a smile on his face.
But he can go two ways with this, with the jungle support duos. Of course, we saw Peekaboo come onto the scene as an experienced player, but really synergize well with Score. Spooky and his team this game, completely different playbooks, unfortunately.
Yeah, the calls have been quite conflicted when it comes to skirmishing or team fighting with Spooky, and Jin Air saves the Dragon for themselves. All right, they don't really need it. They can take it quickly as they push up the waves and then go for Baron. Let's take a look at this team fight again.
Spooky's nowhere near his team. He's almost dead before anything else has happened. So Expression's actually tagging up with Trace, which, given how this game has gone, is perfect. If the engage could have been anywhere near relevant in the back line, it could have been a different fight. But once that happened, it was all over once Cristo.
IM was trying to engage on two fronts at once, basically, because they were tying up the Gnar. But had everybody actually just collapsed onto the Gnar, it could have been a very different story for them. Because Jin Air was spread out pretty far. That was an abusable situation.
Well, I mean, Spooky was basically doing a Jarvan impression. It was almost like the max range EQ ult screens away from your team. There's just no way for the rest of his team to collapse onto that engagement. Ignar couldn't get in range, and that's been the story this whole time. Whenever we see the ganks in bot, Ignar has never been able to hit a relevant headbutt pulverize, despite being excellent at that ability.
And here we go. GBM locked down. Cleanse comes through immediately. Here's the kiting coming in. Pilot is untouched, and GBM starting to annihilate people. With all that AoE, Frozen gets caught. Triple kill all ready for Pilot. Quadra kill. Sunstar's here. Can Pilot get the pentakill? He's going to get it. Pentakill for Pilot on the Ezreal as he cleans up the fight. He was untouched in that team fight.
Completely untouched, doesn't even need the Trinity Force, just with his suite of armor penetration and the play of the Ruin King. That was the engage IM needed, but when they were even in gold, when they were ahead in gold, not 15,000 gold behind.
Yeah, nothing you can do right there. We've had so many pentakills this season.
I brought them with me from the LPL, Monte Cristo.
Wow. Well, nice kiting there from Janair. That is what they're good at. They may have problems in some of these other kind of team fights, but they can pull that off. And let's take a look at the pentakill right here.
And this is what Ignat finally was able to do. Very nice headbutt pulverize onto 3 members. They get the wombo engaged, but they're so far behind items. There's that Aegis Monte Cristo, it was nowhere to be seen.
Nope, not at all. Pilot gets a good true shot barrage, hitting multiple people. And it was just mostly cleanup from Pilot, honestly. That everybody tried to dive onto GBM, but GBM had the fast fingers on the cleanse, so he got the kite, and there is the pentakill. His buddy Trace taking a turret.
And look, finally has the Sheen in the inventory, but it's nice to see players walk away from the Trinity Force being a core. It's still a wonderful item on Ezreal, but he was able to achieve so much power with just the Muramana, Blade the Ruin King, and Last Whisper.
Yeah, I think this is the more common Ezreal build that we see in Korea, where you go for the Trinity Force as a 4th or 5th item.
It goes from being a core to a luxury, which is interesting. Just given the global meta and how ingrained it is to get the Trinity Force and Ezreal to buff around the Mystic Shard. I mean, the gold lead at this point is just disgusting. So we're waiting for Janair to organize an end. Is Ignat? Yep, he's reminding us he can hit headbutt pulverize.
Well, to Janair's credit, too, this game, they've done a much better job of closing. 30 minutes into this one, they've been playing more aggressively. They've been pushing the limits.
And we needed to be convinced of that because the CJ series, the previous game, question marks for Janair's ability to close. Look, they haven't done it yet, so maybe we're just saying worrying things. Trace has the Mega Gnar transformation. He could Mega Gnar them all onto the turret, but unlike Spooky, understands far too far away from his team.
And here we go. IM pops the Righteous Void. They want to come in on this Ignar. No mana, so he's going to have some trouble. And that is going to be him falling immediately. And there's the Gnar. Gets some people back in the fight. Frozen has the face of the mountain, but does fall to the Chaos Storm. And Trace, he's on a mission to not die to the tower. Everybody just running in. Super minions onto the Nexus. They want Sonstar. They're going to get Sonstar. You poor, sad Kog'Maw.
The reindeer that couldn't be. Unfortunately, this time Rudolph couldn't make it done. He couldn't save Christmas or the base for that matter. And a very nice end to what has been a much more decisive win for Janair Greenwood.
Well, Rudolph can't save Christmas when he's dead, Papa Spiffy.
Nope.
That makes all the children cry. So there we go. Nexus will fall eventually. I guess they want to pad their KDA. Nope, minions will take it out.